Welcome to the Switch Style Podcast. I'm your host Smooth, and on episode 23, I'll recap the VMAs, discuss the Frank Ocean Def Jam fallout, and find out which rapper plans to honor America's Olympians. But before we start, just wanted to let you guys know that Switch Style is a podcast that's designed to enhance your overall listening experience. From my experiences, whenever I speak with people, they can never give me a definite or a well thought out response when I ask them about music or anything pertaining to music. So the idea is to enhance the listening experience for you guys and also to help you describe, and when you talk about music, to speak about it thoroughly. And we just want to encourage a great conversation when it comes to music. Before we go into anything else, I want to let you guys know where you can find us. You can find us on iTunes, you can find us on Google Play, and also you can find us on SoundCloud.com. You can also check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So you can find us on all three of those platforms. And whenever you do, if you find us on iTunes and Google Play, please go and subscribe to the podcast. And also, if you don't mind, write us a review. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong, because we definitely want to get better. And we want to move up those iTunes and Google Play charts. We want to be number one, the number one podcast. If you have any thoughts or opinions for us about what we could do and how we could be better, please don't hesitate to let us know. Write us a review and always subscribe to the podcast. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'll give you guys a quick chart update, and when I say charts, I'm referring to the Billboard Charts. On the charts, on the Billboard 200, Frank Ocean's Blonde debuts at number 1, earning 276,000 equivalent album units. 232,000 of those were actually traditional album sales. As of now, this year, Blonde is the third album to debut at number 1 by way of independent distribution. The other two albums are Blink-182's California and the Lumineers' Cleopatra, which we spoke about in previous episodes. So go check those out. You can check out all the archive shows, again, on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. Also, what's most important to know is that Blonde is the only number 1 this year to completely go around independent distribution and release the album himself to Apple and iTunes. So in a way, that gives him that lone distinction between what Blink-182 did and the Lumineers did. He's completely independent. He didn't need the traditional independent distribution setup. So that's what Frank did, and congratulations to him. And also, another note on Frank Ocean, he also earned his first number 1 on UK's album chart, and he also debuted at number 1 in Australia. So the album has responded very well throughout the world. Obviously, number 1 in the US, number 1 in Australia, number 1 in the UK, and he possibly could have debuted at number 1 in other countries. And we'll actually talk about Frank Ocean more later on in the episode. And also on the Billboard 200, Tory Lanez, his new album, I Told You So, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. It debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200, earning 52,000 equivalent album units, and 32,000 of those were actually traditional album sales. So that's actually it on the Billboard 200. And also want to let you guys know, on the Hot 100, the Chainsmokers and Halsey, they actually spend a second consecutive week at number 1 on the Hot 100 with their new single, Closer. And if you hadn't heard it, Closer is a really great song. It's actually one of my favorite songs this year. It has a really great melody. And we talked about the Chainsmokers in last week's episode. So again, just go check us out on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. You can check out all the archive shows and actually learn a little bit more about the Chainsmokers. So again, check out Closer, which is the number 1 song in the country, and Frank Ocean's Blonde, which is also the number 1 album in the country. So check those out. And before we move on, or before I move on to the next segment, just wanted to send you guys another reminder. Remember to check us out on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud. You can listen to all archive shows. You can check out the current show. This show you're listening to right now, I'm recording it, but by the time you hear it, it'll be out very soon. So check us out. And next, we always like to keep you guys up to date on new albums that's coming out. And we actually have a couple of new albums for you by two really great artists. And the first is actually by gospel star Charles Jenkins. He's back with his third album titled Think About These Things. So far, his notable singles include Awesome and War. And I'm sure all you gospel fans, I got a lot of gospel fans out there, you know that song, This Means War. So that's pretty much it. And his current single, Just to Know Him, featuring Byron Cage, currently sits at number 13 on Billboard's Hot Gospel Songs chart. And according to Jenkins, you can expect to hear R&B, hip-hop, and other influences on the new album. And the new single that he's putting out, Winning, which was actually produced by one of my favorite producers, Mr. Warren Campbell. And if you're a big gospel fan, you know him from his work with Mary Mary. And he's also produced for Kanye West, among a number of other people, Music Soul Child, John B. He's a very versatile producer. So check out Charles Jenkins' new album. And secondly, Kendrick the Family Soul. They actually released their new album this past Tuesday, August 30th. And if you don't know who they are, they're husband and wife R&B duo. And they just released their sixth album this past Tuesday, August 30th, titled Legacy of Love. The album is led by the lead single, All My People, which is currently making its rounds on radio. And also, look out for our review of Legacy of Love next week on episode 24. So I know we got a lot of Kendrick the Family Soul fans out there as well, and I'm sure they always put out really quality music, very positive music, very uplifting music. So I have high expectations for it, and you'll actually get to hear my opinion next week. So before we move on, again, I just want to remind you guys, you can always check us out on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, follow us, and on iTunes and Google Play. Remember to subscribe to the podcast. It'll come to you weekly. And also, if you can, please write us a review. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. And give us some feedback. We just want to get better. And the more feedback you give us, the more popular we'll become. And, we can continue to use that feedback to make the podcast is the best that we possibly can be. So, again, thank you. So we'll move on to our Inside the Industry segment. And first, I'll actually talk about the MTV VMA Awards. But if you missed it, this past Sunday, August 28th, MTV, they held their annual VMA Awards, the Video Music Awards. Rihanna was the recipient of the Video Vanguard Award, which is the show's highest honor. She also performed a medley of her many hits on 4 separate occasions. Beyonce took home the most awards with 8 total, including Video of the Year and Breakthrough Long-Form Video. Calvin Harris and Fifth Harmony scored 2 wins each. And last but not least, Drake, 21 Pilots, DNCE, Coldplay, and David Bowie also took home awards. And according to reports, the awards were available to view on 11 different channels and were watched by an estimated 6.5 million viewers. So if you're interested or not, there was actually a drop from their viewership in 2015. They actually had about 10 million viewers last year, so that's a drop. And obviously, the show is declining in popularity. And for me personally, I watched the show. It was a fairly decent show. For the most part, you had Ariana Grande and Nicki Minaj. They performed. They came out. They were in all pink. And it was sort of like a fitness class. Ariana Grande, she came out on a fitness bike and she pedaled. And I don't know how she managed to pedal and sing at the same time. Most likely she was lip syncing. And Nicki Minaj came out. They did the thing. It was an okay performance. I wasn't overly impressed. Our number one song of the country, the Chainsmokers and Halsey, they performed as well. And keep in mind, you can go back and listen to the archive shows. But the Chainsmokers, they're producers, so they really lacked a lot of stage presence. There really wasn't a lot going on. And Halsey, she was okay herself. Rihanna, as I mentioned earlier, she performed on 4 separate occasions. She performed many of her hits: Work, Diamond, Stay, What's My Name, among many others. Rihanna has that many hits, and she actually performed in 4 different sets. And overall, I've never been overly impressed with Rihanna as a performer. She dances, but she's not on the level of a Beyonce or Ciara or some of the more premier artists that do dance throughout the industry. And she sings, but vocally, I've never been impressed with her live. She sounds great on the record, but live, it never translates in my opinion. So overall, she was the recipient of the Video Vanguard Award, which was the evening's highest honor. And she's well deserving. She's always had very innovative videos, very interesting videos, very appealing, very eye-catching videos. So she was definitely deserving of that. And congratulations to her. And by far my favorite moment of the night was Kanye West. That's my favorite guy. I followed Kanye West well before he put out his first album, when he was actually producing for Jermaine Dupri, Jay-Z, and many others. But Kanye, he came out and he went on this, I wouldn't call it a rant, but he just went out and he talked like he normally would. And it's funny because he came out to Famous, which is caught up in a lot of controversy. And Famous, that's the song that refers to Taylor Swift in a negative light, just to put it politely. But Kanye came out, he did his thing, he spoke for 4 to 6 minutes on various topics, but mainly it ended up being about himself and how he wants to be one of the more innovative, one of the influencers, one of the people that really changed the world. He always mentions Steve Jobs, Walt Disney, Henry Ford, among many others, and that's where he sees himself. And I don't blame him for that. That's my guy. But the greatest part about Kanye's appearance was the video that he showed. And he came out and he played a video for Fade, which is on his latest album, The Life of Pablo. If you hadn't heard it, please check it out. He played Fade, and Kanye was nowhere to be found. Fade just opens up with Tiana Taylor. If you haven't seen Tiana Taylor or heard her music, please go check her out. And fellas, I know you will love it because Tiana Taylor looks absolutely amazing. I mean, she has hands down one of the best bodies I've ever seen. And it's so funny because you can see the reaction on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and everywhere. Tiana, she looked so great. She had people wanting to get up and go to the gym that next morning. So that's how great she looked. But she pretty much danced to the song in what was like a gym setting. And in the end, her husband made an appearance and their baby daughter as well. They just had a daughter. And if you don't know, her husband is Iman Shumpert, who plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's fresh off a world championship. He just won the championship with them in June. So congratulations to him as well. And not only am I congratulating him on that, I want to congratulate him for just marrying such a beautiful and fine woman, because she is something to see. But Tiana Taylor, she did an amazing job. For me, that was the highlight of the VMA Awards. And also Beyonce, of course. Beyonce came out and she performed nearly the entirety of Lemonade. She didn't perform the entire album, but she performed probably about 5 or 6 songs. In total, her performance was about 15 minutes long. And she did an amazing job, which she always does. She actually sets the bar, and in my opinion, Beyonce, she saved the show. Without her performance and what she did, there really was nothing to be proud of or really nothing to be seen outside of that. I mean, Nick Jonas and Ty Dolla $ign, they performed as well. That was pretty interesting. But Beyonce, she's just so amazing at what she does. And at this point, I mean, I'm pretty much running out of things to say about Beyonce. She's just that amazing. And she did an amazing job performing most of Lemonade. And she just sets the bar so high. If only everybody else could get to her level. But obviously, it's going to be pretty hard because she's the best when it comes to performance. But overall, those were my thoughts on the VMA Awards and, for the most part, how I felt about them. But I also have a few more topics to talk about. But before we jump into everything else, if you like what you hear, remember to follow us on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. Subscribe to the podcast. Write us reviews. Leave us comments on all 3 sites. And let us know what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong, because we definitely want to get better. And before I move on, I do want to acknowledge Juan Gabriel. He's a Latin superstar that passed on this past Sunday morning, August 28th. According to reports, he suffered from a massive heart attack while preparing for the next stop of his Mexico Es Todos tour. He was right in the middle of a 22-city arena tour. And considering his age, he was actually at the peak of his career. I mean, last year he reportedly earned a total of $11.6 million in touring revenue, which is a lot. And he also had the best-selling Latin album last year in Los Duos, which reportedly, according to Billboard, sold around 131,000 copies. So this guy was at the peak of his career, and last week he actually debuted at #1 with his latest album titled Vestido de Etiqueta por Eduardo Magallanes. That was a mouthful. I don't know if I said it all right, but I'll try it again. It's Vestido de Etiqueta por Eduardo Magallanes. It debuted at #1 last week on Billboard's top Latin albums chart, and it's actually expected to debut again this week on that same chart, debut at #1 on that same chart. So Juan Gabriel, he was at the top of his game, and me personally, I'm not familiar with his music, but I definitely respect the grind that he put in over 30 plus years. He's been around for a very long time, and one of his peers, one of his close friends in the industry, they actually referred to him as the Elvis of Latin music. I definitely want to send out my condolences. I wish his family the best, but I'm sure they'll be okay, because he's made a lot of money over the last few years. He's been pretty hot, the top Latin artist. So rest in peace, Juan Gabriel. You definitely deserve to be recognized, and I definitely look forward to getting some of his music and learning more about him. It's a shame that I wasn't more familiar with him while he was still here, but rest in peace. And next, I actually wanted to talk about the fallout between Frank Ocean and Def Jam. And a lot of people aren't talking about this thing. It's actually been sort of overlooked, but I'll just give you guys a quick rundown on the story and how it all transpired. So, as you guys all know, Frank Ocean, he released a pair of albums titled Endless and Blonde, which we reviewed. We reviewed Blonde last week. If you hadn't heard our review, go check it out on the archive shows, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play. We actually reviewed Blonde, and Frank Ocean released those two albums last week, Endless and Blonde. So right now, they both caused quite a stir throughout the industry, and more specifically at his former label, Def Jam. On August 19th, Frank Ocean, he released the visual album, Endless. It was released as an Apple Music video stream via Def Jam and parent company, Universal Music Group. According to sources, Endless completed Frank Ocean's contractual obligation to Def Jam. So what that means is, for all of you out there, once he released that first album, Endless, Frank Ocean was no longer indebted to Def Jam. He was no longer signed to a record label, which means that now he's a fully independent artist. So, less than 24 hours, Frank Ocean actually released Blonde, which is a 17-song album, and he released it exclusively through Apple and independently on his own label, Boys Don't Cry. According to sources, Def Jam and Universal Music Group, they had no involvement in or knowledge of Blonde. So let me break it down. Let me let you know why this is so important. So for Frank Ocean, what's most important to know is that by him completing his contract with Def Jam, his possible earnings from Blonde suddenly rose from around 14 to 70%. Also, he's no longer obligated to record for Def Jam and is now a fully independent artist, which I mentioned earlier. So just thinking about that, just put yourself in his shoes, or you can compare it to where you work now. If you work a job and you're only receiving 14% of the work that you do, and just imagine if you could get 70% of the work that you do, and just think of it in terms of a dollar. You're immediately going from 14 cents every dollar all the way to 70 cents every dollar. That's a significant difference. And also, according to Billboard's estimate, as of now, Blonde earned around 2.12 million. Now that's not a set in stone figure. That's just based on Billboard's estimates. So they're estimating that Blonde has made around $2.12 million within probably the last week or so. So just think, if he was still signed to Def Jam, that $2.12 million would have been a lot less. So congratulations to him. But on Def Jam's end, Def Jam and Universal, they're now left with an album they can't sell in Endless. They can't reap any potential earnings from Blonde, and Frank Ocean is no longer a Def Jam recording artist. So they lost all the way around because they can't sell Endless, they can't make any money from Blonde, and they don't have Frank Ocean anymore, which he was considered by many to be one of their marquee artists. So right now, in reaction to Blonde, Universal Music Group, their chairman and CEO, Lucien Grange, he let all of his labels know, and his labels include Interscope, A&M, EMI, Motown, Capitol, Cash Money, among many others. Lucien Grange, the CEO and chairman of UMG, Universal Music Group, he let all of his labels know that they are done with streaming exclusives on one platform and on a global basis. So I don't know if you guys know the streaming exclusives, the entire industry, and if you've been listening or keeping up with the show, this year has been the year of streaming, and we've had several albums that have been exclusively distributed through Apple Music, Tidal, streaming sites like that. And just to give you an idea of some of those artists, Kanye West, his album was a streaming exclusive. Rihanna's, Beyonce, Drake, DJ Khaled, Chance the Rapper, Frank Ocean, some of the biggest albums that came out this year were streaming exclusives. So the industry is changing. Not every artist can do it. It only works for those select few artists, maybe only that 1 or 2% of artists. But it just gives you an idea of where the industry is going and how things are changing. But I just wanted to let you guys know that, Frank Ocean, he's been extremely dissatisfied with Def Jam for quite a while. Just to give you an idea of how dissatisfied he has been with Def Jam, I'll read you a post that he made, a tweet that he sent out on Twitter, and he's no longer on Twitter now, but I'll send this out to you. So this is what he said. I did this, not Island Def Jam. That's why you see no label logo on the artwork that I did. Guess it's my fault for trusting my dumb lawyer and signing my career over to a failing company. F Def Jam and any company that goes the length of signing a kid with dreams and talent with no intention of following through. F them. Now back to my day. I want some oatmeal and toast, brunch swag. I woke up today feeling like all my followers should know that. My record label slept on me. Like slept for over a year. And just for clarity, sleeping is fine. But don't wake up with your effing hand out. No swag. F Def Jam and any company that goes the length of signing a kid with dreams and talent with no intention of following through. F them. So that was back in 2011. That was when Frank Ocean, of course, was still signed to Def Jam, and the prior album, the one before Blonde and Endless, titled Channel Orange. If you haven't heard it, go check it out, and you can find out more about Channel Orange on the previous episode, episode 22, the Frank Ocean Blonde album review. You can find out more about Channel Orange and more about Frank Ocean on that episode. So go check it out. But you can tell that Frank Ocean has been pretty much dissatisfied with Def Jam for pretty much his entire tenure there. So it wasn't a surprise. I guess it might have caught some of us off guard, being that we hadn't heard from him in about 4 years, and he's reportedly actually moved over to London. According to some reports that I read, he no longer lives in the States. He's moved over to London, so he took control of the situation. He gained his freedom. He gained his masters, and now he's a fully independent artist. So congratulations. Really proud of him. It's always nice to see someone be fully self-employed, someone who's working for themselves and themselves only and not someone else. So congratulations to Chance. And last but not least, just to jump into our last topic, it's a pretty fun subject. According to reports, rapper Paul Wall and his business partner, TV Johnny, have offered every medal-winning U.S. athlete a free, exclusive gold grill engraved in color with the Rio 2016 logo. And they came up with the idea during the 2012 London Olympics when a pretty famous guy, well, he's pretty infamous at this point, Brian Lochte, the American swimmer, he went to Paul Wall and TV Johnny and actually asked them in 2012 after the London Olympics. And he actually asked them to create a grill that was designed the way he wanted to. So that was pretty much the inspiration behind Paul Wall and TV Johnny's decision. So I did some research and I checked it out. The U.S. won a total of 121 medals, 46 gold, 37 silver, 38 bronze in Rio. So just think about it. If every American Olympian takes advantage of the opportunity, Paul Wall and TV Johnny, they would be responsible for a total of 121 medals. And they must be doing pretty well if they can extend this offer to the Olympians. So we'll actually see what happens with that. But for me, my personal opinion is that if it was me, I would actually take a gold grill with the Rio logo on it. I can't say I wouldn't wear it, but I just think it would be a nice parting gift, a nice gift to commemorate a special time in my life. If this is how I would feel if I was an Olympian, it would just be a great gift. And it's a very nice gesture from Paul Wall. And honestly, I'm interested to see how many Olympians actually take him up on the offer. So I wouldn't take it personally. Well, I would take it personally. I'm sorry. But chances are I wouldn't wear it. I might put it in my mouth once and, they have to go in and they have to fit it, put the molding in your mouth, on your grill to actually make sure that they can get it right. And, I would do that and I would probably wear it for a few minutes and take it out and I would, save it. It would just be a great piece, just something to remember 2016 and what I accomplished in the Olympics at the time. So that's actually it for Inside the Industry, and we'll actually move on to the last segment, which is What Are You Listening To? And right now, I'm listening to Lloyd's True. If you hadn't heard Lloyd's True, I know Lloyd's been he's been missing for quite a while. And True is a great record. For the most part, he explains what happened the last few years, why he's been absent, what's been going on in his life, and where he's pretty much been, what he's done. And he's catching us all up on what's been going on with him. So check out True. And also another thing that I'm listening to is Closer, the #1 song in the country. It's one of my favorite songs this year. So if you hadn't heard it, please go check it out. And for the most part, that's a wrap. Before I go, I definitely want to shout out. I want to thank everybody who listens to the show. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your support. And, we'll definitely keep doing this thing and we'll keep it going. And remember to follow us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. We would definitely love for your help. We need some feedback. We need all of your opinions. We need some help. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us what we're doing right. Let us know how we can get better. And just if you have any feedback, just let us know what we can to do better. But again, thank you everybody for listening. And it's actually a wrap on episode 23. And I'll see you next week. Peace.